he didn't have to say anything in regards to whether or not his son wanted to be pardoned. He could have said, "Hey man, I'm not focused on that right now." But since they were calling Trump a threat to democracy and they were saying that nobody's above the law, but they were speaking about him, that's what they were running on. So when he kept saying things like, nobody's above the law, I respect the jury's decision in regards to my son, he didn't believe that, but he didn't have to volunteer that lie.
Hello everybody and welcome to this episode of Common Sense Review. My name is Michael and I'm still your host. Today we are going to talk about the trust we put in the politicians and how they fail us every single time. We know that the politicians are generally liars and crony people. But we vote them anyways because, especially those of them that don't do predominantly what they promised that they would do to help our life. So we try to see our pluses and our minuses. And to them that have more pluses than minuses, we vote them. So that the little they do with the ones we do, our life will be better. We also know that there is an arm of the society that is created to keep the foot or the feet of those in power in check. Those designed from the society to be the watchdog of those who are in charge. And that is the media. But unfortunately, in the recent years, it is obvious that the media has become co-opted by the master liars. They are now no more the watchdog, but they have turned to attack dog for the ruling party, for the ruling government. Instead of being a watchdog to keep their actions and reactions in check, they have become their attack dog, the instrument of destruction and the propaganda arm of the ruling party. And that leads me to the discussion we have today, which is Joe Biden pardoning his son. When Joe Biden took office in 2020, he promised that his government will be the adult in the room. That there will be a contrary, a flip side of so-called Trump's government, which was full of lies. That he will be a symbol of fellowship of the rule of law. But every single one of these promises failed. Not just minimally, but woefully. His administration was the first one ever in more than 200 years history to prosecute a former president. And the charges were ranging from a one-night stand with a porn star that happened over 18 years ago to bookkeeping record that happened over 9 years ago. Every single one of the things he was prosecuted, except the so-called January 6th insurrection, has passed their time for possible prosecution. But the question was, why did they do that? They did it because they have looked for every avenue to get this guy not to run, to get him out of the race. When none worked, they resorted to the lawfare. Unfortunately for him, the sins of his son, which he was privy of, even though he denied it, caught up with him. At the eve of the election, the last month, the October surprise was a laptop that has documents that showed in details different misgivings, different action committed by Hunter, his son. Even though the media made every effort to cover it up, they later on accepted that they were really Hunter's laptop, and they became the main evidence for his both indictment, prosecution, and the guilty verdict. While he was about to undergo sentencing, Joe Biden, who has promised over and over again that he will never pardon his son, sweepingly pardoned him. He didn't just pardon the crime he committed, but the crimes he may have committed. And that was where the equation lied. How did he know the exact point from which to pardon his son of possible crime he might have committed, not charged? But that is not my problem, at least not yet. The problem is the media and the agents of the media that are supposed to call this out found a way to spin it as a father love to a son, which is possibly true, but why lie about it over and over again? Their lie, Joe Biden's lie, can be understood, but lies of people in the media have no excuse to them at all. One of those people who lied vehemently, yet he had called Trump a liar. Sometimes he refused to call him by name because of how devilish he is. One of those people is Whoopi Goldberg of The View. So now, I want you to watch how it became a free fall, not in terms of fight, but she couldn't get herself to accept that Joe Biden lied. Even Chairman the God and other members of the crew, few of them, of course, not all of them, because all of them believed that the only person who could do wrong was Trump. So let's watch Whoopi and Chelaman.
Yeah. Let me ask you something. Conversation about President Biden getting criticized from both sides of the aisle for pardoning his son Hunter after repeatedly saying he would never do it. And a lot of people are saying that it's hypocritical, etc., as if the other side doesn't do it. But what's your reaction to it?
I mean, I think all of the criticism is valid because, Democrats stand on this moral high ground all the time. And, they act so self-righteous. The reality is he didn't have to say anything in regards to, whether or not, his son wanted to be pardoned. He could have said, hey, man, I'm not focused on that right now. But since they were calling Trump a threat to democracy and they were saying that, nobody's above the law, but they were speaking about him, that's what they were running on. So when he kept saying things like, nobody's above the law, I respect, the jury's decision in regards to my son, he didn't believe that. But he didn't have to volunteer that lie to begin with.
I'm going to stop you for a second.
Uh-oh.
Only because you don't know that it was a lie. We don't know why he changed his...
You really think he just changed his mind over Thanksgiving weekend all of a sudden?
No, I'm going to tell you what I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think he changed his mind because he got sick of watching everybody else get over.
They don't have to do that.
I'm a Democrat. Tell me what the moral high ground is.
The moral high ground is nobody's above the law. I respect what the jurors are saying. He don't have to do that.
So we're mad at him because he changed his...
Oh, no. By the way, I'm not mad at him pardoning Hunter Biden.
But you sound like you're
mad.
No.
If I could get in on this, I actually think it went further, and this is one thing we really disagree on. Joe Biden made a point of saying we stand by our institutions and the impartiality of the Department of Justice.
Yes.
Democrats ran on that. The same DOJ indicted Hunter Biden. How we shouldn't be saying it's corrupt like Donald Trump does. But then in his statement pardoning Hunter Biden, he says that it was a political pursuit by his own Department of Justice.
Can you explain to me why it is that when Joe Biden does something, everybody clutches their pearls? My question is, what is it that makes people flip out with Joe, but we don't have the same kind of thing?
Well, I don't think people are flipping out with Joe. I think Democrats are flipping out with Joe because Democrats believe that they don't represent what he's currently representing. But that's just not true. That's why I say they stand on this moral high ground that simply does not exist. And I think this is also the problem when we pick sides, right? We've turned political parties into teams. I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan. Ain't nobody more delusional than me, right? Okay? I feel like we're going to the Super Bowl every year, but I'm not delusional. Well, no, that is delusional. But when it comes... But when it comes to political parties, if you pick a side, right, if you say you're a Democrat, if you say you're a Republican, you refuse to be objective about anything.
That's why I'm an independent.
Yes, but
I think that's the best way to go.
But that's not a monolith. We're not, Democrats are not a monolith.
But why can't you say when Democrats are wrong? And why can't Republicans say when Republicans are wrong?
I'll tell you when Democrats are
wrong. So you don't think Joe Biden is wrong?
No, I don't. And can I just point this out to you?
According to Chelaman, it is ridiculous. But for me, it's more than that. It's a moral decadence that an adult, somebody this age, cannot get herself to say that somebody who said that he will not do something over and over and over again, sent out his agents and they repeated it, and I even made it the pivot point for running against their opponent. That when that person turns back to do that same thing, that the person didn't lie. Of course, there's always a reason to lie. That you have a reason doesn't excuse the action. It would have been more adultly, it would have been interesting and reasonable to say, okay, he lied, but I can connect with him. It would be difficult to condemn his son. But to claim and insist that Joe Biden didn't lie, that makes me wonder, what is lie? If that is not a lie, then what is a lie? It might also be delusional, that all the lies they claim that Donald Trump told were not lies, but the figment of their own imagination, since they can make and unmake something. Since whatever they say is, and whatever they say is not, and they alone have that power. But it was too much for some people, especially some crews in NBC and CNN. One of the crews couldn't get herself to give a single point. She was totally dumbfounded. And you can understand. That shows that at least she has a conscience. Some of them don't. Some of them had ruined their soul so much that evil is good and good is evil. And there's no difference between the two. So let's see this ABC anchor get totally dumbfounded that her colleague had to come in for rescue.
Yeah. Let me ask you something that's going around right.
I just heard it. I have to process it. I don't have a take. I'm sorry.
He was dishonest with the American public about whether he would give a pardon. They said pretty flatly, right before the election, when he was interviewed, when he was still in the race a couple months out, that he would not give a pardon. He said that repeatedly. He said it. Karine Jean-Pierre said it repeatedly to the American public. What he said publicly, they were not straight with the American public, and people remember that.
With us now, CNN commentator Karen.
CNN, in a way, really used to be the main voice in TV until a certain time. They also became the main propaganda arm of the ruling party, starting from the Gulf War. Yeah, at that point in time, there's still more trust and credibility around the name CNN, around the brand. But with the advent of Trump, everything changed. They fell woefully. And they have been paying dearly ever since. Their rating has gone to the gutters. And yet they have not found a way to redeem themselves. But lately they put a real conservative guy in their crew, Scott Jennings. And he has been a light in the dark to most of them. And he has become the reason why people like us, we still go to CNN to get news from them as the old lady of news. So in this episode of this post, I want you to watch how Scott Jennings made this lady eat her crows, even though she was not perturbed. Because, they believe that they have the moral high ground. So whatever they do, it's good enough. And it's always better than what you do, irrespective of the effort you make in doing it. So even though he threw this lady's fault, her error, and the error of the entire Democrat Party in her face, she still couldn't find any reason to believe that Joe Biden lied. So let's watch it.
With us now, CNN political commentator Karen Finney and CNN senior political commentator Scott Jennings. So, Karen, you just heard Democrat Greg Stanton, Democratic governor of Colorado Jared Polis. There are Democrats saying they're not happy that President Biden made this decision.
Yeah, well, tough. The president went ahead and did what he thought was right for him and to protect his son. And I think there are going to be Democrats who, from a political perspective, are going to feel like they may have to say something, but who probably on the inside understand why President Biden went ahead and did this. And I got to tell you, the crowing from Republicans, and I know my dear friend Scott will have plenty to say about this, but we're talking about, Donald Trump is a convicted felon who literally had pardoned his daughter's father-in-law and just made him ambassador to France. So if we're going to talk about, who's using what system in what fashion, let's put it all on the table, and let's be honest about the fact that Donald Trump doesn't really have a leg to stand on in this one.
So, Scott Jennings, what about that? Steve Bannon, Charles Kushner, Paul Manafort, Roger Stone, Michael Flynn, and Charles Kushner not just pardoned, but also apparently about to be nominated ambassador to France.
Joe Biden is leaving office making the strongest possible case for Donald Trump that anybody could possibly make it, and that's that our government and our justice system is of, by, and for the elites and nobody else. He ran to banish Trumpism from our political system in this country, and he has left it politically and now institutionally the strongest possible political force in this country. It is a complete and utter failure by the head of the Democratic Party and the President of the United States. Never again do I want to hear, oh, Donald Trump's a liar. You can't believe anything he says. Donald Trump will abuse his power. Donald Trump will only use the system to benefit himself and his family and so on and so forth. Never again. I have one question for Karen, and that is, why did he need an 11-year blanket pardon going back to 2014 when Joe Biden was the vice president? We are sitting on the biggest cover-up of who knows what crimes, and Joe Biden amazingly knows exactly, roughly, when it started. He knows just about when it all started. He's leaving office in complete and total disgrace. He is a liar, and there is no other way to spin this today. This has nothing to do with Trump and everything to do with the character of Joe Biden.
Now, if you watch how Karen was laughing in this video, you realize that nothing Scott Jennings said really touched her. Just as the politicians whose lamp they are carrying, whose propaganda arm they are, her soul is almost in the same power, in the same level with them. They don't feel anything, and they don't care about whatever happens as an offshoot of the action. Their mind is already made. But Jennings was on spot, on the point. You lack the moral certitude or the audacity going forward to condemn Donald Trump or anything, because you claim to be the adult in the room, you claim to have a moral high ground, but all of them are fake. And unfortunately, there's nothing anybody can do about it right now. The damage is already done. So please, if you are finding any value in this video, I plead that you subscribe and like and just write some comments. If you want to support further, I will give you an outlet to do that as we progress. For now, the much I need from you is subscribe, like, comment, and share. So let us check the next and the last clip of this episode, which is Dan Goldman standing there, listening to himself, put himself on a top pedestal only to be crushed by her own statement. He was one of those who vehemently claimed that Joe Biden will never, ever pardon his son because he's morally astute, he's politically perfect, and to stoop down to such level, unlike Trump, who will do worse than that. Unfortunately for him, facts don't lie. So you listen and let me hear on the commentary side what you think about this humiliation, about this crow eating by Dan Goldman, and let it be a lesson for those who can just come say whatever they want because they think that the result will remain the same, even though they know that they are lying.
Congressman, first, your reaction to Biden's pardon of Hunter.
Well, look, the one thing I certainly agree with is that this was an improperly politicized prosecution. Those two charges as I know from 10 years as a prosecutor in the Department of Justice, are almost never, if ever, charged against a defendant in a standalone indictment. And the reason why they were charged is because Republicans in Congress improperly tried to intervene in an ongoing prosecution to scuttle a plea agreement that Hunter Biden and David Weiss had entered into. The plea agreement was unusual because of Donald Trump's threats of retribution and Hunter Biden's understandable concern that if Donald Trump won, that his Department of Justice would come after Hunter for other crimes that he wasn't charged with but was investigated for. So the president is exactly right that if his name were Hunter Smith and not Hunter Biden, he would not be charged with this, and that is not a proper outcome here. That's not a proper use of our rule of law. I wish the president had not stated after the plea agreement fell through that he would not pardon Hunter Biden, because it is discouraging that he has now gone back on his word on that. But the merits of the pardon and the reasons for it are legitimate, especially as you look at who Donald Trump is nominating, people like Matt Gaetz, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, all of whom have threatened retribution against Hunter Biden and others.
Okay, you went out on a limb backing up Biden when he said that there would not be a pardon. In July of 2023, just after that plea deal fell through, this is what you said. I want to watch.
Do you think a pardon for his son would be a mistake?
Yes, and I don't think there's any chance that President Biden is going to do that, unlike his predecessor, who pardoned all of his friends and anyone who had any access to him. And I think you see that in this case, where he kept on, and Merrick Garland kept on, a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney to investigate the president's son. If there is not an indication of the independence of the Department of Justice beyond that, I don't know what we could look for.
What does that feel like, watching yourself back then, reassuring people that Biden was not going to issue a pardon for his son?
Yeah, and I think that if that plea agreement and that plea deal had gone through, there would be no pardon. That was a satisfactory outcome.
It had already fallen through.
That only was. Sorry?
When you reacted, this was when the deal had fallen through. And I hear what you're saying about the Kash Patel appointment, but you took him at his word. So what does that feel like, knowing that he's gone back on it?
So, as you can see, if you look at those two clips, the first clip where they played him talking to himself, saying that Biden will never pardon his son, and even the current one where he was being interviewed, he didn't flinch in any of them. That is to tell you how gone he is. He is gone. So it takes a mastery of lie, mastery of falsehood, to be able to watch yourself caught with your hand in the cookie jar, and yet you didn't flinch. He wanted to claim that the statement was made before the plea deal fell through, but credit to the CNN anchor, he pointed it out. No, it has already fallen through before you took this position. In which case, he still didn't flinch. He still didn't flinch. So the people we are dealing with are trained liars, and they are the people, unfortunately, who are ruling, who are in leadership position, not just in the United States, but all over the world. And they make laws and get us to follow them, whether we like it or not. So it's up to us. What do we want to do? How do we want to live? It's better we look down and say, who best represents our interests, and not which party do I belong? Because at the end of the day, these people don't care about you. So, thank you so much for watching. As I said, if you found value in this video, please subscribe, leave your comment, like and share, and see you next time.